everyone, and welcome back to News to the Science, where we discuss comics, movies, games, and more. And I want to talk to you about something that really caught my attention actually literally yesterday. And I learned that Tony Todd had only used 10% of his work, and that was due to Insomniac Games only using 10% of his work. So who knows how many reels or audio recordings there is of Tony Todd doing Venom. But this is really interesting, and also I think it's interesting because in my review of Marvel Spider-Man 2, I talked about how there wasn't enough Venom in the game, in my opinion. He was saved for the latter half of the game for the most part. And I don't think we got enough of Venom. Sure, the game length, about 20 hours or so that it takes to beat the story, is probably the sweet spot, but I had wished that we gotten more Venom, because the majority of the first half of the game, Kraven takes up that spotlight, and Kraven was an amazing villain in that game. But then in the second half, Venom takes over, which he was also ferocious and ruthless, but I feel like there were certain parts that were just cut out, and they were just cut out completely from the cutting room floor. And it was just wait a minute, it just feels like there's certain segments of Venom that's just missing here and there. And that's just the way I felt. And I'm glad to learn that at least I was right. But at the same time, it's I kind of wish I wasn't right either. So this is coming from comicbookmovie.com, and it says here that Spider-Man Tony Todd says Insomniac Games used 10% of his work, quote unquote, and cut up Miles Morales and Venom subplot, which would have been interesting to see as well. I would have loved to see how that played out too. While it would be a little unfair to call Spider-Man 2's Venom a disappointment, he didn't leave the lasting impression we anticipated, which in my opinion I can agree to a certain extent, because Tony Todd's performance was really good. It was amazing, and I really liked it. But again, if you really think about it and think about the game, and when you played Marvel Spider-Man 2, there's nothing too much memorable about Venom besides the fact that he got to bite off Kraven's head in the game. The Harry Osborn twist was fine, but the villain unleashing a symbiote army on New York felt like the familiar ground of Spider-Man Web of Shadows. Anyone? Yes, I can agree to that as well, and I'm answering the article here that I'm reading. Yes, when the symbiote army was unleashed in the city and you had to clear out the nests or the hives or whatever you want to call them, it kind of did take me back to 2008 when we played Spider-Man Web of Shadows, and perhaps made Venom a tad one-dimensional. Much had been said about Candyman icon Tony Todd lending his voice to the character, but even that proved to be a less impactful than the majority of fans expected. Why? Well, Venom didn't really end up having a whole lot to say. He didn't have many lines, but I think his performance was pretty impactful in my opinion. It was pretty reminiscent of the classic animated series. Moving on with the article. Appearing at Fan Expo's San Francisco panel this past weekend via GameFragger.com, Todd claimed that most of his work was left on the cutting room floor, suggesting Insomniac used as little as only 10% of what he recorded. So there's been speculation that big chunks of the sequel were removed to ensure it would be released on time, and Todd revealing that a subplot with Miles getting the symbiote was cut suggests that was indeed the case. It may also shed new light on why the hero ended up with the awful Adidas tie-in. Yes, I agree too. I think that suit looks completely garbage. It is an Adidas product, and for Miles to end up choosing that suit over his current classic black suit that he wears in the comics and in Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, I'm what was wrong with that suit? That suit was clean and peak, and the fact that he had to go to that horrible, ugly ass Adidas looking ass costume, it just boggles my mind. And I could even change back into the original costume, because that costume had to be kept for the scenes at the end of the game. And I'm why can't I just change my costume? I don't like this suit. It's ugly. Now, we can't help but wonder whether much of Tony Todd did is actually being saved for future DLC or even wildly rumored Venom spinoff, which honestly, after the ending of the game, I don't really see a Venom spinoff game happening anymore. But then again, anything is just about possible. So asked last month about the latter, Insomniac senior narrative director John Paquette left the door open to such a possibility. We're focused on Spider-Man 2, and that what we're going to do is we're going to wait to see how the fans react, he said. We're going to listen to the fans, and we're going to ask them ourselves, what do the fans really want? We kind of talk about stuff after we all had time to sleep and take vacations. Do you think Spider-Man 2 delivered a strong Venom story, or did the sequel drop the ball on the fan favorite Lethal Protector? You let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. current seeing Marvel Spider-Man 2 panel at Fan Expo with Tony Todd and Gigi to bringing the hype. And this was a tweet from Evan Filaka on November 25th. Tony Todd has confirmed that Insomniac only used 10% of his Venom dialogue in Marvel Spider-Man 2. More might be saved for the future. And he continued on with, at Tony Todd 54 has confirmed that he recorded lines for scrap scenes when Miles had the symbiote in Marvel Spider-Man 2. So you can't really say it's a spoiler anymore because the game's already out, but Miles ended up getting the symbiote suit, but was completely cut off. And I think it would have made for like a really fine game. Yes, the game would have probably been a tad, maybe a few hours longer, but since when is more Spider-Man ever a bad thing? Anyway, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Miles Morales face the ultimate test of strength inside and outside the mask as they fight to save the city, each other, and the ones only they love. Reads the game's synopsis from the monstrous Venom and the dangerous new symbiote threat. And you explore an expansive Marvel's New York, yada, yada, yada. You know the rest. That's pretty much the premise of the whole story of the game. So it's interesting to learn that these details have just come out right now. Miles would have had a subplot of his own where he gets a symbiote, and I think it probably would have taken place after Peter had let go of the symbiote, or maybe it could have taken place at the same exact time while Peter was also donning the symbiote, and it probably would have been up to Peter and Miles' friends to convince him to remove it. But then how will that work? Because you can't really, like, an ordinary person can't really fight Spider-Man. Spider-Man's really powerful compared to an ordinary human being. And also, the fact that they only use 10% of his work, that means Tony Todd has spent so much time in the booth recording a lot of lines. If you really think about it, play Spider-Man 2 again. Venom didn't have too many lines, and that was a little disappointing to me. Despite the fact that I do think that this game is a great game, there's no questions about it. There are some problems, and those are my critiques about it. You know, Venom didn't have enough to say. Venom didn't get a lot of screen time, and that kind of left me wanting a bit more and just a little disappointed. But overall, gameplay, the gameplay mechanics, the swinging, the combat, the story is fine overall. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely would play it again. And I'm actually playing another playthrough in Ultimate Difficulty, both live streaming, which I gotta finish the game before New Game Plus mode comes out, and of course I'm playing in Ultimate Difficulty on my own time whenever I can. So that's pretty much I have all for you tonight. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click on the bell notifications so you don't miss anything. Post your thoughts and theories and comments about this whole gigantic bombshell of news where we found out that Tony Todd only got 10% of his work done and placed into the game. And I'm like thinking like, man, all that time was wasted. But then at the same time, well, I'm sure he was paid for all that time that was recorded, but I really would have loved to see it. Maybe we would have maybe a DLC that's focusing in the past where we get to see more scenes with Tony Todd's Venom. But then again, anything's possible. We'll just have to wait and see how the fans react. My money is on the fact that people would want to see more of this iteration of Venom and Tony Todd's performance, because if it's true that we only got 10% of his performance in this game, I'm sure the fans are going to be clamoring for some more, because this Venom, I really liked this version of Venom in the game. That's all I got for tonight, guys. Thank you all once again, and I'll see you all in the next comic panel.